And you two are okay with being recorded?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is anyone not ready? All right.
Good.
Okay. The standard is maximizing expected well-being. First, phenomenal introspection proves that pleasure is intrinsically good. Our ability to understand the introspective experience of others commits us to utilitarianism in a babu way. One considering pleasure, one can make judgments that are good experience, just like one looking yellow is brightest, one can experience pleasure and recognize as good as what I can experience. Increasing pleasure, things are better than they were before, just as there's more brightness, my vision, fantasy, other places, back one has it, one feels good, phenomenal respect, some people don't well, good, others bad. Second, using the status of heuristic is a powerful learn tool for liberations and audit 14. Use government as a heuristic to explore defects and context where they're deploying governmentalities as a heuristic, conduct inquiries based upon a practice of government resistance. A heuristic is essential for invading a political agency. Governmentalities is true to rely on the same conceptions of the liberal order and reinforces the liberal conceptualization and power with political action is what to do with the playing with the cards that dealt with us practical effects. Third, abstract questioning fails to just center on concrete alternatives. Brian 12. The academic left falls prey to abstract is good at critiquing very poor realistic alternatives that price one ultra radical critique phase 2 question mark phase 3 revolution. People need to hear and understand we never make concrete proposals. We are intellectually based from saying the revolution is the answer without addressing any of the infrastructural questions. We're intoxicated with critique because it's easy and safe. We really do anything. Everyone knows something is wrong. None of us are proposing alternatives. Fourth, moral uncertainty means that preventing extinction should be our highest priority. Boston 12. Moral uncertainty suggests that our past action may be confused. If we are uncertain, there's a greater value in pursuing our ability to see the future accordingly, ensuring there will be a future committed is the best way to increase future value. Solvency. Resolve. The United States federal government should enter all citizens turning 18 into a draft into the Army National Guard and the Army Reserve Flight 13. I remember the U.S. initiated law-based draft the Army National Guard and the Army Reserve. All citizens are 18th birthday. Those called up 3 options. First, serve 6 years in the reserve after basic training. Pick the while in the reserve. That's soldiers deployed for 1 year. The commitment is complete. Second, serve 30 years in the active army. The Marine Corps. Third, go to college, be enrolled in the RTC. This would improve the quality of the across all services. I not be eligible for any bonuses with 2 million turning 18 each year. Small number will be conservative, but they will be high quality and include every socioeconomic quintile volunteer. Would include or consequences for those who fail to fulfill their military obligation would be required. Military may objective concept they will be difficult to motivate, train, and discipline. The plan solves personnel shortages, success deployments, the financial burden of the AVF, like 13. Conscription creates a sustainable force, not subject to recruit crisis, and provides ready access to train forces within 30 days, and the ability to sustain rotation, desired ratios. This is that reduces PTSD, growth, and other problems which violation to one-time policies, future skill sets that are conserved in the force to reduce contractors and information tech, intelligence analysis, and language skills. Advantage 1 is readiness. The all volunteer forces unsustainable will collapse. They'll isolate 4 internal links. First, a recruitment crisis is on the horizon. Propensity to serve and eligibility at record lows, like 13. The OBC will triple the growing number of asthma, reduce the pool of recruits at 25.1% dropout rate. One person is able to meet the standards of the military service. 30% recruiting success in the future is a function of the percentage of the population that's both willing and able to serve. A 10% decline in propensity and to translate to 4% decline in enlistment. Accurate propensity in 2000 was 12%. A 29% drop since 1984. One of the most powerful numbers of word of mouth soldiers. We're more on an all-time low of 30% of eligible population able to serve. 12% is willing, 3.6% is likely to enter. Both have declined recently. This 3.6% includes only those who meet minimum quality requirements. If the present trends continue, we're particularly in the military will be overused. So stay with the military is going to be absolutely impossible. Second, personnel shortages force reliance on private contractors which compromise operational command and strategic capability, multiple warrants, like 13. The AVF cannot recruit a sufficient number to prosecute the world's worth. The ability to expand the force quickly is difficult to do in the AVF. The contractors present tactical operational problems. First, contractors do not take order. Second, contractors harm discipline. Third, express use of service members do not their contract agencies recruit service members away from the military. Fourth, contractors must be protected by the military when they find themselves in dangerous situations. The AO substitute contract for force structure the expense of the unit of operational command on the battlefield. The most compelling was that the military could lose our combat operations while on the contract unit with the USC. As historically done internally, the existing district contract means to office capability, real possibility. The military monitors readiness of units contract not subject to inspection below ready to lay contractors subject to work stoppage to the payment is restored the risk of the operation becoming accepted the AVF like to firm the best of the party to have the capacity to develop its intelligence analysts unlikely consider the military requires volunteers with requisite capabilities otherwise you're receiving the mercy of contractors committed to profit rather than operational excellence. Third, the AVF is financially unsustainable. Personnel costs are skyrocketing like 13. The AVF is becoming unbearably expensive for definition of the past decade. The cost per person increased by 46%. Personnel costs continue to grow. That rate of personnel costs will consume the entire defense budget by 2039. The life cycle cost trends that support the AVF are unsustainable. Officials have understood this problem. Personnel costs have grown by 90% since 2001. From a cost standpoint, the AVF is unsustainable. The AVF is much more expensive than conscription, enlistment bonuses, and recruiting and healthcare costs make the AVF economically infeasible like 13. Recruiting costs is $4 billion per year. This cost does not include enlistment bonuses. The AVF is generally an older force, so with more dependence, which causes the healthcare costs and independent obligations to rise. And the 73 the Pentagon budget was $81 billion in 13. It was a $500 billion 6 per year percent. And then pattern increase to which our personnel costs were a significant contribution. Personnel costs have risen 46% over the past decade. Fourth, our military is exhausted, shortened dwell times, and excessive redeployments kill readiness like 13. Soldiers not deployed for medical reasons were 60% of 2012. 9,000 soldiers when the Wounded Warrior Program Sergeant Dimension was killed in Afghanistan on his 14th deployment. The 13,000 soldiers thus spent 4 cumulative years in Iraq and Afghanistan. 47% of Army personnel were deployed on the second greater combat to retreat. Disposed combat makes these words different. Stop loss restrict soldiers from separating the Army at the end of commitments in 2002. More than 120,000 soldiers have had their active service extended by stop loss and readiness deters global conflict. French 17. Without America maintaining its rules, the guarantee of safety, what is more likely to retreat to global conflict. American retreat means the advance of powers hostile to peace. Trump has reformed commitment to NATO, accelerated fight against ISIS and Russia, multiple defense to South Korea, starting more American power abroad, not less in every arena where American step rival stuff from China, settle a nightmare in Iraq, China, aggressive with the Southeast Russia, military aggression in Ukraine, American retreat, embolden enemies, nation, probably the U.S., Britain, France, and Japan together for a decade to deploy forces of rational society, international orders, cannot see that the U.S. advocates America is indispensable to peace, and even who thinks the U.S. has to change its commitment without agreeing unacceptable list is not living in the real world, and war engenders worst form of oppression and suppression of rights. 1. Active source on the subject of injustice cause war, the evidence suggests the causality of the other war is not a part of a single cause, war is a fuel to sustain it, injustice. If you want war justice for increased emphasis on injustice as the main cause of war seems empirically inadequate. An American hegemony is foundationally sound and egalitarian and promotes social, economic, and political equality for all. Caption 14. The U.S. has constructed an egalitarian socio-economic order. This has shaped the hegemony. The U.S. has opted for a liberal hegemony rather than empire hegemony as a social and support of the autonomy of all peoples regardless of race, ethnicity, or religion. The will not be get and colonialism will by the goal of U.S. leadership brought to fruition. The U.S. has embraced a brand of hegemony with the cultural inclusivity, shepherding the citizens has been an active liberation, not inculcation. The civil rights movement of faith at home. The Washington begin with support of the international problem of promotion of racial and gender inequality. American hegemony is distinguished by diversity. Advantage 2 is mental health. Excessive poems cause PTSD and chronic mental health problems. Empiric show. Late 13. PTSD is a signal of recognition syndrome. PTSD is very repeat deployments reduced 12 times. Our studies indicate that the segment deployment goes up with probably PTSD. PTSD made itself self and physical, behavioral, and psychological ways. Estimates 3% of veterans that are academic against from PTSD. 30%, only 50% will get treatment. And the impact is suicide. Every day, 18 veterans will take their life. Late 13. At the end of the 2012, 482 service members committed suicide compared to 310 who died in combat. The current rate of suicide in the military is 3 times what it was in 2001. After doubling to 2001, 2006 veterans account for 20% of the 30,000 suicides committed each year. 18 U.S. military veterans will take their lives each day. Veterans are twice as likely to commit suicide as non-veterans.
Did you read all of it?
No, nothing under the suicide impact. Ready?
Let me delete part of it. So, right here's good?
Nothing under the suicide impact.
Okay.
Start.
Alright, first question. What is the scenario for nuclear war?
So the French evidence outlines multiple empirical examples in which U.S. retrenchment has escalated into a power
Policymakers
vacuum.
have threatened nuclear war for years. Why hasn't it happened yet?
So we don't take a stance on other scenarios that policymakers have said claimed nuclear war. Our argument is
Why are your claims uniquely different from their claims if they both are recent? They're both epistemologically sound. Why are your claims uniquely?
So the AF proposes a pretty robust explanation of why the ABF is unsustainable and in the future is likely to collapse, and that the collapse of the U.S. military would require retrenchment of
the plan text.
commitments.
So people have a choice to go to the ROTC, the military, or whatever the third thing is, right?
The reserve, yes.
Yeah. If they go to the ROTC, can they be called over to the military?
So the ROTC is a cadet program. So if the military,
Yeah, so they can be called up, right?
Probably, yeah.
So how do you choose how many people are deployed and where to deploy them?
What do you mean?
Who chooses where people get to go? How many people get to go?
So it's a lottery-based draft system. People who are chosen via the draft.
Who chooses? Does Trump choose?
It is a lottery.
Does the military choose?
It is a lottery. It is random.
Okay, so how do you determine how many people we need?
Sure. So every year the DoD releases a quota that is a number on how many people
Okay,
the
so
U.S.
the
military
DoD
needs
just
to
gets to
sustain.
pick how many people we send to whatever place. That's fine.
I mean, it's not like an arbitrary number, right? So there's a quota, and then
Sure. So they
depending on
get
the
to
differential
choose the
of how
quota.
many we
Sure,
have
that's
in
fine.
that quota.
The DoD decides the quota.
Yeah.
Is there any restraint on this sort of DoD choosing who gets to go anywhere?
What do you mean by who gets to go anywhere? So if you are chosen, you have the option of those three
Sorry, that's a
choices:
bad
reserve,
question.
active.
I want to talk about the
ROTC.
Zanotti evidence. Policy. So why is what knowledge is necessary to stop this? Make revolutions actually start working? We've been defending policy for so long. You've read the same app, this entire topic. Have you learned anything, Danielle?
Yes. So the Zanotti evidence, however, makes a sort of a different claim than the one that your question seems to imply. Zanotti explains that you can engage with the state without making any normative statements on the state's goodness. You can use it as a descriptive tool.
Why?
And that is because me saying that the state takes an action is distinct from me saying that every action the state has taken is good.
Okay, that's fine. Can you name a black author or a person of color from any of the 1AC evidence?
I don't know the race of the authors.
Okay,
that
I've
would
looked
be.
through all of them. They're all from white scholarship.
Well, it's
How
one
does this-
person for the majority of it, so I don't really know how.
That doesn't. I don't think that makes it much better. But the entirety of the 1AC is based on white scholarship. How does this take into account empirical realities of black people?
So I don't think that it's equivalent to say that the AC is only white scholarship just because it is written by a white person. But
the
I mean,
framework
this
is written
a,
by white people. Bostrom is white. Zanotti is white. There's not
Yeah,
just
so I think that there's still a distinction between like having a white author and something that is white scholarship, which seems to connote something different.
Okay. I'm sending out the one. Send. One off case. Sorry. Is everybody ready?
1 second. Is there an order on case?
Top down.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
Blackness is ontological. The middle passage of branded black bodies non-being laying the foundation on which civil society is but challenging and dangerous called then the micromobility, but they both die on the same grammar suffering that originates from the fundamental attack as the world gods to minimize anti-black violence. World is in. Oh, wait, just found the possibility of ethical dilemmas with the black appearance of the connections of the elaborate difference between living in the violence of position of the black as avoided historical movement, the violence that turns to the African to think without dialogue, because not simply oppress the black through empirical technology, rather the creatures of violence, middle passage wiped out, metaphysics, Jews, window, arches, chemists, Jews, Africans, British, males, black, the violence which turned into bodies that ripped apart literally and imaginative, the joint possibility of ontology, because the position of the black with an infinite vulnerability to have black is no ontological business, the humanity, and the U.S. military is inseparable from violence across the African continent. There's no humane military to redeem from a history murdering exploitation. The logic of domestic policing is an inevitable result of the way military policies black people abroad. Bill Anderson 15. A black life is one role of forced migration, enslavement, death. We the police officers and assault in the hands of the president fixes to dismantle policing. We must also dismantle the military social police in the name of the heroes of the black bodies of soldiers. They're releasing the orders means disrupting black and seasons that feels runs parallel exanity. Black people feel worldwide. The police kills Africans globally. The UN wave concerns about massive rights, human rights violations. Why is the UN allowed to wave such safety because when it comes to black life, those given the protect us all, black immigrants make the invisible and hyper invisibility, and the politics of hope ignores its foundational truth that the slave is always outside the frame of redeemability, and sin creates an imaginary future to keep the slave at bay, always promising something greater. Warren 15. The politics of hope bundles promises of justice and progress of political objects. We keep life beyond the reach of the objective political to keep blacks in the relation to political objects and understand unending pursuit of it, shielding its alternatively in historical philosophical critique, representing unknown future and limiting that field of action and to conclude only activity recognized by limited by personnel. Only no Republican is outside the hope reach of hope solution. Every problem is connected to some kernel of eradication. The whole of what depends on the incessant reproduction of proliferation of problems to justify existence. Solutions cannot really exist within the politics of just the illusion of something different orders of future tense. And the absolute of nuclear war come from a position of privilege. Nuclear weapons are produced by white elites and have systematically used to threaten and manipulate non-white populations. Williams 11. Nuclear weapons are white weapons and virtues and vice white people. No nations are conditioned to the future of figure nuclear weapons. They have interpreted manifestation of destructivity, racism, reckless of white civilization. Nuclear weapons have been pivotal for the sites of their articulated racial, ethnic, and national and civilizational identities. Nuclear technology has been subject narrative of racial and ethnical belongings and exclusion undoubtedly because of emergence in diplomatic against Japan was an act of genocidal racist violence. The historical congruence of national nuclear representation, decolonization, and maintain the importance of this concept of future revision of World War III and black positionality mandates a radical separation from hegemony. Hegemonic dominance in the USS employs the same kind of that is used in prisons and by the police. Any endorsement of this hegemony is re-entrenched in anti-black rhetoric. Wilderson 02. The blackness has positionality that's with dereliction in the face of civil society and therefore cannot establish or be established through hegemonic intervention. Black citizens or by black civic obligation, oxymorons, coalitions and social movements, even radical social movements like the personal abolition movement, bound up socialization, hegemony, coalitions and social movements cannot be called the outright handmaidens of white supremacy, the territorial structures of political desire, underlying supplemental anti-blackness. The radical coalition raises disturbing questions about the political desire, black personality, hegemony, modality, struggle, and vertical's ontological impact of black in civil society. Black people are real to make but continually displaced, and this is why white women cultural person when they see black men white, the impersonal industrial complex is a dedicated sustainment to the impersonal of black people, while the black people are continuously stigmatized for being black. Wilderson 11. Subject vertical sensation says that one is spinning out, one is moving or spinning in another way stationary, where the sensation that one is simply spinning or in another way stays stable, rather than one's environment is perpetually unhinged. Central relationship of violence cannot be analogized. It's called objective vertical, so structural part of performative violence. Black people subject to the violence of parodying madness, says not just a performance continues to be simultaneously vertical, is a radically different one. Violence when she breaks from the whirling discourse because revolutionary subject of vertical when they say civilizationary forces, and this turns to case one. Ontological damage, the root cause of your impacts people, black people in the military. There's no impact of black people in the military because they are constantly displaced and terrorizing against white people too, and always on severity. All revolutionary politics is sort of the opposition. Example: subjective vertical, objective vertical is when you don't have a strategy to fight the state. Alternative is to enter a constant interrogation of the black positionality, render civil society incoherent. Wilderson intent during the apartheid against the inflicting its inflicting period to make analysis. The movement dedicated to complete over the existing order. They will compromise over two earn ability or willingness to hold a moderate feud of our political agenda. Predicate on inflicting period to make analysis. We have to get about it. The question of the greatest power on the framing issue. Their refusal to engage in discussion on the way into blackness shift. The world will lose in this debate. The role, another role about it. Rather, this means you should evaluate the critique before case substance. Section 16. Inclusionary adjustment must be displayed by ethics real and the downward movement this entails making it necessary to have something to do with research for method gaining age to religious path hidden structural violence underwrites the violent acts realities have often mistaken as a depiction of the world the choice of the future of scholarship rejoice the content of decay they impact the constellation of transcendent beings bear the activity of thinking about those transition foreclosed in modern world the case debate their frameworks arguments are another link ethics are colorblind and obstruction of reality in the way that is inaccessible to a oppressed body they serve as another hoop to jump through where we can engage in racism curry 13 odd is not rational over our president no the values can be achieved correctly we're lacking no kind of world control by the way so that a president can imagine a condition where they allow to engage in racism these ethics are not arbiters of pressure, but they are rational calculus capable of revealing a categorical impaired content and constraints on human experience, the synthetic hyper whiteness, the landscape of thinking, and on the naughty one. When we learn more about the state, they learn more about us, killing revolutionary potential because they can stop moving too black. We already know enough about the state. They experience its antagonistic relationship to them every day. Any sort of information won't change these movements because the ultimate goal is still the same three paternalism. They insist on black people learning more about the state, but would fix movements like BLM when it's actually the ontological nature of society recruiting violence because you prescribe unnecessary action movements, which means this is just an extension of a colonial civil society because you force people to defend the state. Even though you don't realize that's historical injustice, it's inseparable, Daniel. On Bryant, one, we provide a step to a shift away from liberalism would result in material change for black people. They are making reasons why we are the card isn't even attempted to define what concrete action is to impact. They say our evolution is the sapiens who would replicate the exact same papering over violence that we critique our alternative standing in the face of police violence when they call it lazy. 3, this assumes we don't have the warrant stake of what you ask yourself why we need a concrete solution when the entire case so we said we don't. 4, abstract theories think there's a better internal link creates effective and safe revolutionary strategies that can resolve anti-black institutional abolition. 1, this is such a link. The world has already ended for people of color. The death culture focus on extinction max the oppression of white supremacy. Omalade, 84 nuclear war, 25 million people. This is the same number of African people who died as a result of a displacement for people. Starvation already prevalent in housing is inhumane families on the streets and districts. Death culture of markers over death and life and disarmament is disabled not linked to daily racism. People of color can even murder than nickel has already been declared an impact on the inherency arguments. The uniqueness for the creating things all fails arguments try or die because those institutions are killing themselves. That's a question of soul outside pressure now. And Trump makes transition structurally inevitable, opens a tax institution and ally commitments, pulls out of trade norms and undercuts military legitimacy. Holbert 6/6 outweighs on recency. Washington's viewed by nations as a problem building a new relationship. Trump is undercut and made short-term political process, embarrassment of project connection, and more complicated confidence, the arguments in a range of law enforcement, the refusal to affirm NATO relief, the UK exposed the French and German angry at Trump, follow-up action declined about European support and US military action, European interests are opposite of Trump's aims of international response to India and economic feeding fast hand, allowing the status quo assurances and de-escalates global flashpoints, unipolar world that Trump guarantees military ties, unstable trade flows, and total norm collapse. The girls 17 counts of hedge of reveal contradictory policy, Trump policy represent on cooperation and radicalizing practices U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, the most important issue for cooperation. The double standard by the U.S. contradicts and undermines international cooperation. Does the world economy Trump is increasing authoritarian resistance with the U.S. ideological polarization, Russian checks and balances cut the card. Checks and balances and zero risk of violence, shift to multipolarity is comparatively more peaceful and salvages the liberal order. Where 15. Trump's policy makes opportunity for regional cooperation. U.S. allies are beginning to develop countries in the trade security. Trump is increasing European military integration could work to face challenges like Russia, Middle East, where Europeans counterweight America's China, South Africa, and Japan's enemy resistance protection, and neighbors wanted more trusted isolation of America, born to Africa, Africom, to deter development aid. Got the credit, development aid.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Status of the critique
Unconditional.
is the policy of the affirmative possible new world alternative. Okay, so what part of the act does the critique disagree with?
The entirety of it.
Okay, so a little more specific, I guess. So is stopping imminent and probable threats of extinction inconsistent with the critique?
Your threats are not imminent, nor are they probable, and 2, that focus on extinction, yes, is anti-black.
Okay, so focus on extinction generally as a way to just skirt discussion about material violence is distinct from stopping real threats of extinction.
Dude, you read Bostrom, man. That means we must focus on extinction because we don't know what morals we should use.
Okay,
that is the definition of like
that's not my question. So if extinction were really to happen tomorrow, would that be something that the critique would disagree that we should stop?
I think that question misses the point of our evidence. We say that extinction is not probable. That's the impact events and the Omalede argument.
Yeah,
and no.
I'm asking a question.
We would say the K outweighs.
Independent.
No, the K outweighs.
Okay, so what's the argument for why the critique outweighs?
It's a question of ontology, not just like extinction, right?
What does that mean?
Extinction already exists for black people. That's the ontological damnation argument we made on the critique. Your argument is that extinction will happen, but this papers over our argument that it's already happening now. It has happened in the past. The Middle Passage was extinction.
Okay, and all right, that's fine. One of the arguments is that endorsement of hegemony is anti-black. What does it mean to endorse hegemony?
You said hegemony sustainable and key to egalitarian society. That's like pretty clearly an endorsement of hegemony.
Is there a distinction?
Like, I don't know what it is.
Is there a distinction between saying that hegemony is comparably good versus extinction is versus hegemony is great?
No.
Why?
Because people say comparably good to obscure over the anti-blackness saying
What's
it's great.
why?
You just say it's comparably good to get out of the fact that you say hegemony good. You
Okay,
just said
would
it's comparable.
hegemony by a totalitarian regime be
We
worse
say
than
hedge is
American?
always bad.
Okay.
Right, and a focus on preserving hedge is always bad.
Like U.S.
Right,
hedge is
the
always bad, or
alternative-
hedge in general.
I mean, hedge in general is probably bad, but U.S. hedge is way, way worse
Okay,
than any
what does
other
the
form of
alternative do
hegemony.
to resolve the military?
Say what?
What does the alternative do to resolve the military?
First of all, it concedes AF uniqueness, that your inherency, the AVF, is unsustainable. That means there's alt solvency, which proves the military is
Okay.
deconstructing itself.
Okay, so
Second,
the alternative solvency relies on the fact that extinction does happen.
What? That is
So-
not what I said.
so-
You said AVF is unsustainable. I said, yes, that is good. That proves
Okay.
actions like
so
the AF prevent the status quo from
the
deconstructing
alternative
itself.
relies on the AVF collapse in order to have
That is
solvency.
one mode of solvency, but I can keep going if
Okay.
you want me to. And it's also a
The
question of our
arguments-
ethical orientation
The
towards
arguments on
anti-blackness.
case. So why is blackness ontological?
There's 3 warrants. First is gratuitous violence. Right now, there's like,
So the argument that your card talks about is the fact that the Middle Passage created created ontological blackness, or created that position. So if a material condition is what initiated blackness to be a position of ontology, then what effect does material conditions have on reversing that?
our argument is that material conditions cannot reverse it because the Middle Passage made it so like blackness is like libidinal, like anti-blackness is libidinal for white people. Second is like empirics prove gratuitous violence.
Alright.
Means that there's no way material consequences can't
That's
do together.
fine.
And just because there's an empirical event that started,
That's fine.
ontology doesn't mean there's one that can end it.
I have a minute. Okay, the order is going to be for the advantage framework critique. Is everyone ready?
Advantage framework critique.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm good.
Everyone good? Okay. The ABF will collapse, incoming recruitment crisis and economic infeasibility proven is unsustainable. Readiness stalls great power war and winning the case arguments proves that the case outweighs the critique lined on your arguments. Trump has not made transition inevitable. His rhetoric might be the U.S. first, however, his actions prove otherwise. That's just a recommitment to NATO and the war in Afghanistan and Finland will not be peaceful. French argument proves that a power vacuum would ensue, which relates to global conflict between major superpowers like China and Russia. And de-escalation is not peaceful. Your evidence assumes a slight fluctuation, not rapid de-escalation, as a result of total ABF collapse and multipolarity is not peaceful. Your evidence is purely disproven by the fact that World War I and World War II were 500 times unbalanced multipolarity, and Cold War was very bipolarity, and you've conceded that U.S. hegemony is comparably better. Maybe U.S. hegemony is not perfect. That is not our argument. Rather, that is egalitarian in comparison to other countries, which would ensue as totalitarian regimes as a result of U.S. collapse on framework. Our ethics are not colorblind. Our argument is that extinction would be worse for people of color, and that is our Goldstein evidence that says a war ensues worse forms of oppression. And Zanotti proves that we do not have to make an argument with the state's goodness, that we use it as a descriptive tool. And on Bright, this is a diss out to your alternative. None of your arguments take into account the infrastructural questions that are necessary in order to resolve and improve the material conditions in the first place. And on the Melody evidence, we will win that we improve the material conditions in the lives of people of color, which proves that there is value to preventing the extinction, because extinction forecloses the ability to get better. And use particularity on this question. We are not. Our argument is not that we should stop low probable threats of extinction, but in the instance of the act in which we are winning that extinction is imminent, then we should prioritize that. Now on the critique. Weigh the ethics of critique case office matter to the extent that prove society the framework mood system and CC offensive resource around the one area kills policy education proves that I need access to the case in order to prove that my groups are signed because they're inextricably linked, and your link is to the status quo. We do not defend every action the U.S. military has ever taken. We are not a valorization of hedge. Our argument is that the draft is necessary to sustain, not expand U.S. foreign commitments. We do not force black conscripts in the active force, and particularity is key crossed by the argument made on case and draftees. Check the development of a military ethos which threatens democratic institutions. The general public needs in the game also answers your policing arguments late. 13. Draftees guard against the growth of the military institutions which propose the threat to civilian authority or freedom. Democratic institutions 1% of the population has in the game. Police the rejection of the question. The military draftees who serve in the military ranks do not serve in the military. They have certainly influences on that they will find key decision makers of the government who has served in the military in permutation. Do both. That is key to all diplomacy. Even if the military is bad, only engaging it from within can change policy. Cali 10. A message that makes the military a line after you are not going to get inside the room. The policy when most of the money is personnel it creates a nation to the government of the Pentagon. Outside mobilization doesn't work. We spend after they're not in the room making the deals that progress or gently making because the military is not the vehicle. We're going to be in the country with only malfunctioning institutions. The military and the old fails. Interrogation cannot resolve the military. It does nothing to rectify the overrepresentation of Africans and Americans in the force would reshape U.S. foreign policy. The draft would because it would ensure that there's equal representation inside the force. So skip that card. And pessimism ignores specific reforms that reduce racial inequality and spilled over to broader pro-equality demands. OMI 13. Last dismiss important reforms that's immediately destruction of the structural oppression perspective and misses the dramatic turns of the politics since the civil rights era. Major reforms are briefly reversible. They were democratic forces and they should decrease segregation, civil rights victories in the 1960s, the Voting Rights Act, Immigration Act, and 18 miscegenation laws. Racial victories shifted the racial state and transformed the skin of race and everyday life. Color card there and answers your ontology claims. Opposition to blackness and whiteness are not a result of those being independent ontological signifiers, but are that instead the distinction is shaped by material conditions, and anti-blackness is contingent, not quotidian, and their discourse is self-fulfilling. Hudson 13. White and black are in some sense necessary identity. Colonialism is a contingent of relation. Neither white nor black is independently valuable in relation to the colonial mystery to the contingent of self-satisfying your practices, although they excluded may be considered ontological content or contingent. If the meaning of the signifier of the exclusion is not determined once and for all, the framework decided inclusion is nowhere agreed. The ontological is political and neverly terminally settled, and permutation do both. It's key to solvency, improving material conditions of prerequisite to resolving the ontological status of blacks. Wilderson, 16, black political organizers in a crisis or police correction and revolutionary force. We have a police state. We're trying to infuse an antagonistic orientation to black people who are white collar people in culture. So the clutches that can be the way black people get it. What I hope to do is have shoestrings running. You can do your political organizing. As police over how we are working, we do not have the strength of the black liberation army to cut guard at that. And when black debaters, we non-black debaters, we have for pessimists, offensive is the reason why you lose. You turn the affirmation of blackness into a wilderness of reasons of why sex and the lack of personal experience makes the conversation counterproductive. This is empirically proven by the Omalati evidence. You say that the world has ended for black people. This is a position that you take as non-black, which literally means that they should die because you've decided so.
5 minutes right now. the order's case, okay? Let me save the duck and send it out. Send. Overview. Actually, yeah, I forgot to say overview. Overview case.
Where on case?
Omalade, and then Zanati, and then substance. Is everybody ready? You've barely answered the ontology claim to 10 waters tonight. This will lose in the day. Blackness, ontological, native alienation, no culture, created the slave, black people came to Africa without nation, culture, religion, or family, forcing a restart, which they have never fully recovered. All example of black culture, power now, black people using common white practice too general, dishonor no matter where. A black person is in relation to white people, they always see the eldest white women pleasure the person when they see black males or why the court system is so incredibly biased against black people. This is culminating gratuitous violence. Black people are eating criminalized and shorter for their hand. List is on the procedure. Ontology arguments is a question of the papered over violence that white people use. Of course, we can't see it now. It's because it's libidinal. 3 extend Warren, the libidinal economy. This is where you're voting. You can see the psychoanalytic why it's anti-black, which disproves all your material conditions argument because it means no matter what action white people take, it will be anti-black. White people, the psychological crave for black legend necessitates the destruction of black identity. White people feel a certain pleasure when they see black violence, and white media reports that anti-black violence is so violent and vividly depicted every beating places your ontology question because the question of how the anti-black is hidden. And if I went ontology, tried everything all because there's no progress, still citing me any demand like the state, like the friend of rules and anti-blacks, you have conceded too many links to win, and the alternatives to embracing the ethical demands of the slave. The social society is founded on the destruction of black people. They inherent demand of slavery, the object of stories of the library of civil society, empirically proven the Haitian revolution shows we can destroy society. Also, the alternatives ethical reorientation to the effort. We prove the opposite. Anti-black. We prove that anti-black is knowledge that you should automatically negate because you can see the role of that. You must always reduce you must also question the when I see scholarship reduce anti-black violence before the app itself extends section to see this is a considered the judge. Anti-black is an environment actively constructed and sustained by the era students operating just as active opportunity actively protest or verify them when I don't cop out the effects of the plan will not have because the impact you choose will value highest effectively actively affect students out of view of the one in the line. When you say you weigh the F, no, you can see section even policy making is good questions representing constantly shaming core policy. You say that's a question of calls to policy education. You have no order for a policy education good. You can see too many warrants on Zanati, which disproves your weighing the case. I mean, you only get to weigh the case of your epistemology, sound, key to net ground, other experiments, discarding huge impacts, outweigh any opposite be prevents the spread of harmful ideology. If you said that N-word, you shouldn't be allowed to weigh extinction against your in-round discourse. C sellouts, studying multiple angles, consideration for step in their business a litany of critiques, and you say mostly have one. This is a new league that sort of radicals of politics and media and orbital my following justification and elimination of the other questions. Policy always kill discussions of racism. Anti-black, that's our section evidence. B. One of your office reformulations, all of the papers why reps are banned and why your reps are means you can always win. See no impact, but no policy education because the critique is discussion about policies of D. You can see there's not evidence. Also education is non-unique and violent because they learn about us. Also, the caution is that when they start learning about us means the alternative will never work. Even if we do work inside the military, you work inside the military forces black people to defend the military, which means they'll never be able to have that structural interrogation on the like turn 13 link turn. One, their support for the military is inseparable from the violence across African continent. Soldier brutalized rape willing women exploit their cultural resources and leave the rich with poverty and prevent various violence. Absolutely, so the the military is a necessary structure within society to charity and to solve all issues. Our logic and also judging violence and near protecting the global order. That's our Williams 15 evidence and the Anderson 15 evidence. 2. Forcing black people in the military, the recreation of slavery by forcing black people to serve against their will for a country that's perpetually screwed them over in the military. Black men are viewed as disposable, put in the front of limits of that when they're trying to see violence and pathology takes like your argument because they would choose people in the military. You can see the DOD can choose quotas and how many people you say engaging with inside. You can see the inherent evidence of the structure that the inside is being destroyed from the inside right now, which just proves that outside pressure is necessary. We don't need the affirmative to revitalize the military. Second, this assumes the state is good. We've already won the progress is not possible. You say you resolve the military. We don't resolve the military now. Constantly inherent argument. 2. It's not a question of resolving the military itself as rather the ethical reorientation to our anti-blackness and there's around not the post-feudal implementation. Obviously, only in one card 1, the study's flawed. A. More black people just going to prisons. It means the average habits of black people skew. B. The card just cites a bunch of examples of reform that didn't work. Their evidence cannot explain gratuitous violence. And 2. All examples as called political backlash and turn the government. Even in 2017, Black Lives Matter shrinking the alt-right black people have no way out. 3. The card doesn't even account for the quality of comparable to white people. Black people still immensely structurally disadvantaged. White people still enjoy privacy, while black people suffer misery for it. Even if there are broad historical trends, that's material
material conditions by the reason is more black people in prison and Trayvon kids get shot while walking on the street. The news playing videos of black people dying because the black people love to see that's only experience of black is being ontological on Hudson 1. Hudson is miscut. So Hudson 13 liberal democracy does not require recognize black experience of the question of it's a matter of now colonialism itself as it is specifically black subject object in the case of white masters very promising individualized socialized ontology will not allow for the black and effect of perceiving this object ontologically reduced empty down amputated. Cut the carding amputated. 2. It doesn't apply. Hudson takes this theory from Fanon's form of psychoanalysis. From Fanon's form of psychoanalysis, which is not through studies in South Africa, Wilderson takes only specified studies in the terms of the U.S. and on Wilderson, the 2 trains argument. 1 doesn't produce a social death theory. 2 Wilderson personal opinions do not change the warrants of the rankings and abolition. Of course, he wants to get rid of the police. 2 the 3 the crowd has literally no warrants. Just Wilderson saying police brutality by means if there's a way to reform, then maybe otherwise they'll turn themselves in. 4 doesn't justify the perm. They have is not a form of police reform. Also, the perm is just a false investment. This interview violates investment. If we have a risk, it probably proves that the system always bad. You shouldn't could lead to cruel optimism because always the state will always screw over black people. No one happens. 1 no impact. Wilderson doesn't take a stand. Theories for everyone is shared by 2 creates a bad relationship between debaters and the judge. White judges decide who gets a reading black which outweighs any sort of cool option because they're immediately empowered to terminate activity. The argument for the activity 3 the card is misused. Evans cut the argument for criticism of Ben Cross and we read it first, but simply universalize the article to all debaters who are applying the specificity. You can see down the case if I prove a specific no LinkedIn no don't vote have A on this. I've been reading the literature and the arguments at the beginning of my sophomore year. It's supreme confidence because I don't do it just for the help of recognition. I agree that all non-black debaters are partners white supremacy, meaning I do not advocate for black and but rather I present a scholarship that you are anti-black and you should lose. That means the link difference goes negative. Also, don't allow her to air blow up this with 15 seconds. It was barely warranted. Extend the impact debate that ontological damnation always all your instances and also just proves Psalm in the military because they'll never be able to authentically fight for the USD. Case mate. We've already won this in evidence. The overview, the critique of evidence, you said particularism is good. No, the focus on solving extinction first because the moral uncertainty is our link debate, not your substantive debate. Even if it's high probability, you say we must always use extinction. You didn't make any weighing arguments, but rather we always have to prevent extinction, which is our homologity evidence that paper's over extinction right now, which is improved than criminal justice. And that violence is always perpetuated against the black body, and there's no way out, which just proves your link on is obscures over suffering that you have not proven that you make better extinctions. Probably bad for black people. Extinction may be bad for black people. You can see that extinction has already happened. That was the middle passage to evidence. We will win. In fact, even so you can see that Trump has to be multipolar. His actions prove that that could have multipolar. That the economic tension between China and Russia are obviously not going to fight each other, which just proves all your anti-escalation arguments. U.S. attorney is not inherently key. And yeah.
Okay. I have a minute. Okay, the order is going to be the advantage, framing, like the framework, and then the critique.
Repeat that, please.
The advantage, framing, and then the critique. Okay. Is everyone ready? Okay. The ADF is unsustainable and will collapse. Readiness is key to solving the great power war, and the critique and the case outweighs the critique. You've conceded our argument that the Goldstein proves that extinction would be particularly worse for black people because war results in worse forms of oppression, which proves that proves that our ethics is not necessarily colorblind, but stopping extinction is good because it's necessary because extinction would foreclose the ability for material conditions to preserve to improve. You also conceded that our impact isn't necessarily just that the U.S. de-escalates, but rather the U.S. de-escalates in worse hegemon takeovers such as totalitarian regimes such as China and Russia, which would be comparatively worse. Our argument is not necessarily that hegemony is perfect, but hegemony is our best option. As of now, you conceded this argument, which means that the case that weighs in, we will win our line by line arguments. Trump has not made transition inevitable. You've conceded that this is just rhetoric, and in terms of our AF arguments, our French evidence proves that he is committed to strengthening current U.S. commitments via his things like recommitments to Afghanistan. Now on the framing debate, we particularly answers the Omalate evidence. Our argument isn't necessarily that we always have to stop extinction, even when probability is very low. However, Bosham definitely does justify stopping extinction in this instance, given that the risk of extinction is extremely probable, considering that you have practically conceded the case debate, which means that we should not be held to, which means that which answers the argument that our argument is necessary that we should only ever focus on extinction, but stopping extinction is good, and this is also good for improving the lives of back, which you conceded. Now on the critique debate, you have practically conceded our no link argument in conjunction with particularity. This means that the critique is a no risk issue. You've conceded that we do not have to defend that the state is good in every instance, rather that in this instance, sustaining, not expanding, but sustaining U.S. foreign commitments is comparatively better, because it means that we can preserve a better form of hegemony than we would have otherwise, and also implementing a draft would improve the lives of blacks. We will go for our militarism term, which you have severely undercovered. You say that we force blacks into the military. However, this is not unique. You've conceded that the draft is, or that the current military is completely overrepresented by African Americans, and that the draft would resolve this overrepresentation, which proves that we do not forcing black people into the military is not what we do, but also resolve this overrepresentation, and also we curb militarism abroad by creating strategic deployments of force, which means that we also resolve your policing arguments, and resolving the lynch term resolves mistreatment in the military as well, which proves that we improve material conditions. This justifies the permutation. You have not explained why an interrogation of blackness would resolve the military, which means it's a question of having a military which is overrepresented and extremely adventurous, and having the AF which curbs this adventurism and equalizes representation in the force, and the permutation is definitely net beneficial. You've also conceded that's key to AF solvency, because the alternative cannot resolve the institutional structures which would prevent the alt from being able to solve in the first place, which means the permutation is key. You've not essentially answered this argument. Also, we do get to weigh the case. You said that the plan will never happen, that policy making is bad. Our argument rather is that our links and our representations are inextricably linked, which means that we are not able to prove that our representations or our epistemology is good absent the case, which is why you move to mistakes the offense and is key to proving we have a good epistemology.
Debate.
There might be a message right now.
Great. Yeah. Congratulations. I want to make sure I get this right.
It's,
Yeah, I think I got it. All right, congratulations. The decision is a 2-1 for the negative from Westwood. I sat. Congrats on a good debate. I thought that the negative was behind in 2 or 3 areas. So first, I think you're way light on the permutation. I want to talk about ontology for a second, but I think the affirmative is substantially ahead for me on the question of we need to look at the particularity of your ontology claims as it relates to black folks being ontologically dead, things along those lines, the extinction claims in particular with Omalati. The 1AR and the 2AR argument, as I understand it, is you don't have any case D. And if that's true, that there is a 100% chance of that, that then, to me, is particularly important. It is particularly important for a couple of reasons. One, the question is, does the alternative do anything to resolve the situation that exists now? I'm not real sure what that is or what that does, number one. Number two, I think that 2NR spends far too little time on the permutation, so I think some structural adjustments and the specific nature of the app can do some things that are good. Last but not least, I think it is important to note that if it's true that the military is anti-black in the status quo, if it is true that the military is racist in the way that it engages in adventurism, things along those lines, and if the act is a step in the right direction to help ameliorate, if not reduce, those claims, that would seem to be a reason to vote affirmative. And I think it's uncontested that there is adventurism now. I think it's uncontested. The links would even say the military is anti-black now. In a world where the AF can do something in this instance to try to decrease the incidence of anti-blackness, I don't know, particularly in a world where I don't think the alternative does anything, why we shouldn't try that step. Because the structural reform that would exist with the affirmative would be far better than the alternative, whatever that means in this debate. So 2 things, and then I'll stop talking because I'm in the minority. The first is, I don't think you can win on just saying it's an ontological claim. I mean, you repeat that over and over quite emphatically and quite persuasively. What does that mean? And I'm not real sure at the end of the debate. I get your warrant extension. I've heard this obviously a couple hundred, well, maybe not a couple hundred, but I think I'm familiar with the literature. I don't know in this debate why that claim is A, true, or B, isn't helped to be resolved in the particular nature of the act by what the affirmative claims to do. Because in a world I vote negative, black folks are still in the military. In a world I vote negative, the military is still adventurous. In the world of the negative, the military is still doing a bunch of things that are founded in racism. She says, well, we can stop that. I don't think you have much of an answer.
Was that both the things, or was there a second thing you also wanted to say?
That's a big one.
Okay. Actually, if you want, I can ask questions now. Before. Are you okay with that, Mr. Timmons?
Whatever.
Okay. My question is, if I have won the ontology claims and that the state is irredeemable, then why is any actually no, I guess the particularity answers that.
Yes.
Did you flow
the affirmative ballot?
Did you flow the 2 responses? They were kind of blippy.
Wow, did I flow the 2 responses? Yeah. Did you flow? All right, I'm just waiting.
Okay. The 2 were reinvestment within the system and cruel optimism within the system. Do you think that is still dependent on me winning that
I think those are
particularity?
interesting thoughts for the day. And I understand what you can do with them. I don't think they're specific enough to address what she says. Here is how, in this one instance, we can help to resolve some things.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I could go through the police example and all that if you wanted to, but I mean, it's the same thing. So
Okay.
I'm good.
No, that was...
Got it.
Okay.
Let them come.
So I kind of agree with the perm part. My only difference is I thought a lot of that explanation was kind of new. Like in the 1AR, I just have written down like perm, net benefit, and that's like it. So I definitely think that you had like different arguments, like particularity and whatnot, but the like packaging of all that stuff together, it seemed a little new to me. Kind of bracketing that though, the more important part for me was the framework. And so I didn't think that the 1AR 2AR responded to the like scholarship comes before policy. The one thing you said was like reps are tied to the plan, but maybe you meant scholarship when you said reps, and that's like the same thing. But the way I understood the negatives argument was sort of like I have to like filter your evidence before we can decide whether or not the plan is a good idea. And so I guess that kind of influenced the way I saw a lot of things. So like when you say hegemony is comparatively good, well, comparatively for who? Like for the U.S.? Like is that good for everyone? And so I thought in a lot of places sort of the like they've conceded this, so I'm just going to say the sentence like hegemony is comparatively good didn't really grapple with some of their arguments about like the differential effects of hegemony or extinction even for that matter. So I guess kind of the most important part for me was that less so like explaining why hegemony is valuable and more like why do we know that, or like how do we know hegemony is beneficial, or how do we know that your comparative assessment or whatever is accurate. Now I will concede, Neg, you could definitely do a lot better job of like pointing some of these things out. Like other than Omalate, the like explanation is very brief, but that was a place where there was just like a wall of NR arguments and not a lot of pushback from the AF about like why they couldn't exclude the plan. Do you have a question? And you're like making the disagree face.
I do, but I can wait until the end.
Okay, so I think that if you won like your original framing, I would concur that like the particularity of the plan is important. But I thought that the neg kind of successfully argued that there was like a prior question to that. And so in order to defeat that, I think you need to extend some of the arguments you had later, like OMI or something, like some defense of political science and like how we know what we are claiming about the world or anti-blackness, etc. I also kind of thought like some of your earlier arguments, like Zanotti, like the neg made a bunch of like policy making bad arguments that weren't really responded to. And again, though, neg, you kind of like extended those super briefly and didn't do like a great job of impacting them. But I think that if you like initiate policy debate good and they turn it, like you have to engage all those arguments throughout the rest of the debate if you want me to vote on just like the plan is good.
Okay, so I guess, like, to address your first comment, what specific, like, what explanation did you think was new?
About the permutation?
Yeah, like, what part of that explanation?
Okay, so you have, like, an argument about particularity in the 1AR, you have this, like, draft good argument, and then you have the permutation. And the way you, like, package those all together is, like, here are the net benefits, and here's, like, why X doesn't answer Y. That kind of, like, framing and analysis, the, like, weighing part of it, I thought was, like, pretty new. But kind of like bracketing that, I don't think that the more important part is I don't think those permutation arguments defend your scholarship. They defend like why the draft would be good.
So I guess even though I use the word representations, like, do you disagree that if we win, like it's all like I guess sort of equivalent to like a security debate, like if we win that our threat is real, then we are not an example of threat construction, so our epistemology is sound.
Well, that's what I mean, like, in the threat real for me in this debate is, like, is progress possible? And, like, that's why I said you needed to extend some of your later arguments about, like, OMI, like, why the law can be good or, like, change things. So you're, like, extending the permutation as, like, particular actions are good, but I thought not refuting the next sort of, like, structural claim that within civil society progress can't work, and that scholarship that says it can is anti-black.
Okay. And then I guess just, like, general, the case outweighing the critique, like even if progress is impossible for black people, did you not find it compelling that extinction for everyone would still be worse?
Well, that's why I said like the little like scholarship prior question. I don't think that you got to weigh the cases.
Oh, okay.
If you did, then I would think that it would outweigh.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I largely concur. I think the concession of that it's ontological, while the explanation from the neg wasn't super great, that at least the implication that progress is impossible does sort of shape the way that I view the rest of this debate. As for the sort of extinction first stuff, I like personally really compelled by this argument, but I just didn't think that 2AR like spent enough time on this. Like I personally would have like expected like a minute of the 2AR to just be extinction outweighs and do a lot of impact calculation here. So the arguments that I have are that it outweighs because extinction is worse for black people, which I think sort of begs the question, like, what does it mean to sort of be worse for black people in a world where progress is impossible? The argument then is like it forecloses the ability to change more material conditions, which again I think presumes that progress is possible. And then finally, it's just like we sort of improve lives. And so I think all of these arguments assume the sort of scholarship argument that was just mentioned, as opposed to like you making an external impact that extinction is just bad and independent of like its ability to create material changes. Like death for everyone sucks, and I don't have that impact in the 2AR as an argument that you can leverage against the critique. I have most of the impact arguments here couched as prereq to decay, and change it, and material change is good. So.
Okay. That's reasonable. So I guess.
Like, I think identifying like perhaps small instances of hope in the negative, and then or like small instances of what the alternative is trying to do, and explaining why extinction forecloses that possibility in its entirety, not just material change, but like specifically what the alternative is attempting to actualize, would be a much better way to say like this is why it's a prereq. But you're just saying it's material conditions, but the ontology debate I think answers that question relatively well.
So. Just to understand, like, did you both think it was mainly a problem with the 2AR execution, independent of that comment that the analysis in the 2AR was new, like obviously incorporating more of that in the 1AR? Was it mainly just a problem with what the arguments the 2AR went for?
I would say the big problem is you spend way too much time on the like Trump multipolarity stuff. Like
In the 1AR?
In the 2AR,
Oh,
like that
okay.
was like almost 50 seconds, and I think
Okay.
that should have been like maybe 5 seconds.
Okay.
And then if you had that time somewhere else, then I think you're in good shape.
Okay.
I mean, I just generally think that there needs to be some pushback on the ontology question
Okay.
in order to win these debates. Especially since, like, a lot of the arguments that I think that 2NR has against, like, Omni are just, like, kind of wrong. So, like, it shouldn't take that much time to point out, like, a lot of these arguments, like, more black people going to prison is just, like, an interesting FYI, but that's just because the black population has increased a bunch. Like, it doesn't really answer all of your claims that, like, progress is still possible or is at least somewhat desirable, you know?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you both for the feedback.
Thank you for judging.
Thank you, Mr. Timmons.
Good.